here we go. I'm doing a quick little video here to show you config ng, which is next generation. This is a little project that is essentially a rewrite of the config program, which is what loads initially on a number of the systems for FujiNet, definitely for the Atari. Lets you configure the FujiNet, load up image files that you want inside the virtual disk slots, boot them, create new files on the SDE, etc., etc. So that is config. And the next generation config is a program written by Mark Fisher, who goes by Fenrock on the Discord, and he rewrote it in assembly, and it's quite nice. It has a very different look than the standard config for FujiNet, and it is very fast as it's written in assembly. I'm going to go through a couple of screens, load a couple of things just to show you how it works as an alternative configuration app. One of the things in the latest release, the 1.3 FujiNet firmware release, came out just about a week ago, and one of the things you can do now is in the FujiNet configuration file, which is a file called fnconfig.ini, you can specify an alternate file name in that configuration file, and it will boot that alternate file as the config instead of the standard configuration file. So it's basically an easy way to play around with this config ng and load it up instead of the regular config. So I'll go through a couple things here, and you can see that we're loaded here, and I see standard hosts like I would have in the regular one. You'll notice that I only see hosts and I don't see anything else, and that's because config ng has split things up into separate screens, and you can see at the very top there, looks like to the left I've got an info, and to the right drive slot. So I'm going to go on the keyboard and hit the right arrow and take a look at the drive slots, and I can see yeah, there's the 8 devices for the Atari. I'll hit E to eject that one. Now I've got 8 empty slots, so I'll fill them up with something soon and boot in. To the right looks like there's Wi-Fi. I'll click on that. It goes in the Wi-Fi setup. Normally I'd see my normal IP address configuration for the FujiNet, but I'm doing this virtually on Altura and using the FujiNet PC, so it has a fake IP address because it's not actually on Wi-Fi. It's using the networking on my host computer, which in this case is a Mac. So I'll keep going one more to the right. Looks like info comes up, and there's this tiny little blurb of the version, and I can see there option to mount disks and boot, just like the regular config. I can continue to go around to the host list by hitting the right arrow, and I'm back where I started. So you can see this thing is very snappy. I can do left arrow, right arrow, and it replies back. So let's load something and check. You'll see it's going to act just like the regular config. So one interesting thing to play around with is Yale, and I'll go over to Atari, FujiNet apps, and there is Yale all the way down at the bottom. I'll pick it, and now you can see what drives to put in there. And I have my 8 empty slots. Of course, the Atari only boots from the first slot, so I'm going to put it in there, and I want it to be read-only, so I'll hit return. I could go back up directories and move around and load in more disks if I wanted to, but I want to boot that one. So hitting escape brings me back. I can take a look. There's Yale, and I'm going to hold down option. Yale is a fun little app. It's just sort of recently been deployed. It uses a back-end server component and a front end. Yale stands for yet another image loader, and basically goes and will stream images down from the back-end server, which is running on FujiNet Online, based on query parameters that you give it. So there's Yale, there's a small help screen. I can see what's going on. I can set a couple different graphics modes, save my settings. It's predefined to automatically go to the server on FujiNet Online, and then the stream command has the arguments. So I like to switch into 9, and then I'll do stream Simpsons, and you'll see the FujiNet's going back there, hitting the backend server. The backend server is going and finding a bunch of images based on that, pulling them down, converting them to Atari graphics format, and showing them. And if I just sit here and wait, after a couple seconds, it'll just keep streaming down images based on that query parameter. And at any point in time, I could decide I want to see something else, like that, and I can put that in, and it'll start streaming based on the new query parameter. It searches a number of things. I think it's specifically set to hit a number of retro sites on the back end in addition to DuckDuckGo, so it will find some interesting images that are certainly relatable to the retro scene. Alright, so that's Yale, and when I'm done, I just reset the Atari like I would any other system, and you'll see it boots right back up into config.ng. So config.ng is very interesting little prototype project that can show you how you could have multiple interpretations of the config program out there. Let's see. Go to my own server. We'll look at one last thing. Atari and FujiNet. There's the Kontiki browser, which is right there. I'm going to load it. Replace Yale. There's browser. Boot that. Again, with the latest firmware 1.3, it's got all the fixes necessary for you to grab Kontiki for the Atari or the Apple and run it. It's a fun little app. Let's see here. I'll put in frogfind.com, which is a nice little site that will take, again, a search parameter, query a bunch of things, and pull down, remove images, JavaScript, all that. And you can see now that it basically has search results for that, and each one of those are links. At the top here, I've got these commands. I could jump to a specific link by using the tab key, and it would go load that. For instance, where am I? I'm right here. I'll hit that. And that looks like the same thing. If you hit down, it'll go further down the page. I think I just reloaded the same page. So if I go to, oh yeah, all right, they're different portions of the Wikipedia page. So if I tab down, let's see if that works. Sometimes this times out. It's not a perfect system. But FrogFind usually does a good job. There's one other thing you can do. Let's see if this is going to stop. Or is it actually going to load something? It's thinking about it. No. Okay. I'll go back. Delete this. I'll load one more page and then we'll be done. If I do localhost 8000, it's going to go out and actually read the web page that the FujiNet itself generates. So now I have FujiNet loading a browser application on the Atari, and then the Atari is loading the web page that the FujiNet generates itself. If you actually wanted to play around with this long enough, you could go in and manipulate, eject disks, do some other pieces, but you can see that this is the actual FujiNet that I'm using for this. See, there you go. FujiNet PC, Darwin, it's running on my Mac. So there you go. That's web browsing on your Atari. Okay, so that is config ng. It's its own